A violent storm forced sponge divers toward a remote Greek island. Their search for shelter led them to an ancient shipwreck, and within its ruins, they recovered a lump of corroded bronze and wood. This unassuming object would become one of history's most baffling puzzles. It is called the Antikythera Mechanism, the world's first analog computer. Its gears are so sophisticated it feels like a relic from the future, lost in the ancient past. By the end of this investigation, you will understand how a single artifact rewrites our entire understanding of human technological progress. We will follow the trail of clues that point to a forgotten genius, a mind capable of engineering a portable universe 2,000 years ago. How could such advanced knowledge simply vanish from history? What kind of person could have conceived of a machine that predicts the motion of the heavens? What does this one mysterious object tell you about the hidden potential of the ancient world? The year was 1900, and the Mediterranean was far from calm. A crew of Greek sponge divers, led by Captain Dimitrios Kondos, was battling a fierce storm. Seeking refuge, they steered their small vessel toward the rocky shores of Antikythera, a remote and windswept island. As the waters finally settled, one of the divers, Elias Stadiotis, suited up and plunged into the deep, hoping the clear water might reveal a fresh harvest of sponges. What he saw instead made him gasp so hard he nearly lost his air supply. Lying on the seabed, some 150 feet below, was the haunting silhouette of a shipwreck. The dark shape of the ancient vessel was surrounded by a ghostly landscape. Marble and bronze statues of horses and warriors lay tumbled on the silt, their forms emerging from the shadows. Stadiotis surfaced in a frenzy, babbling about a heap of naked women and dead bodies on the seafloor. He had stumbled upon a treasure trove frozen in time. The Greek government quickly organized a salvage operation, the first major underwater archaeology endeavor of its kind. For nearly a year, divers risked their lives in the treacherous depths, battling strong currents and the crippling effects of decompression sickness to bring up the wreck's priceless cargo. They recovered magnificent bronze statues, delicate glassware, and piles of ancient coins. Amidst this spectacular haul of art and treasure, they also pulled up a seemingly insignificant lump of corroded bronze and wood, caked in centuries of marine growth. It was fragile, unremarkable, and easily overlooked. With no obvious artistic value, it was catalogued simply as a piece of junk and set aside with other miscellaneous finds. For years, this strange object sat in a crate at the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, its secret locked away beneath the crust of corrosion. The real treasure was hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to look past the surface and see the intricate machine within. For decades, the corroded lump from Antikythera sat quietly in the museum's storage, a forgotten curiosity. When scholars finally turned their attention to it, their initial conclusions were logical yet profoundly incomplete. They saw the remnants of a circular dial and what appeared to be astronomical markings, leading them to classify it as an astrolabe, a device used by sailors for navigation. But this simple explanation immediately ran into trouble. As the layers of hardened sediment were carefully picked away, a far more complex reality began to emerge. Peering inside the fractured fragments, researchers saw the glint of intricate bronze gear wheels, layered one upon the other like a miniature mechanical universe. No simple astrolabe contained such a dense, complex arrangement of interlocking components. The sheer number of gears suggested a machine of unparalleled sophistication, a puzzle that defied every known example of ancient technology. The initial theory was not just wrong, it was an understatement of epic proportions. Faced with an artifact that seemed impossible for its time, many in the academic world simply dismissed it. Some suggested it couldn't be ancient at all, proposing it must have fallen into the wreck from a later era. Unable to reconcile its existence with their understanding of the ancient world, they set it aside. The mechanism was relegated to decades of obscurity, a baffling anomaly too strange to be taken seriously. Its secrets would remain locked away, waiting not for a smarter historian, but for a new kind of key, a technology that could see through the corrosion and reveal the ghost of the machine within. The breakthrough arrived in the 1970s, not from a new archaeological dig, but from a hospital. A historian of science named Derek de Solla Price had been fascinated by the strange object for years, and he realized the only way to understand it was to see inside it without destroying it. He turned to a powerful new tool, gamma-ray imaging, a technology that could peer through the dense layers of corrosion like X-ray vision. When the first images came back, they revealed a sight that left Price and his colleagues speechless. Nestled within the crumbling fragments was a miniature cosmos of mechanical precision. They weren't looking at a handful of simple gears, but a dense, layered clockwork of at least 30 interlocking bronze gear wheels, some with teeth finer than a millimeter. The machine was a labyrinth of engineering, and then they saw it, a component so advanced it seemed to defy the timeline of human history. There, clear in the ghostly radiographic images, was a differential gear. This was not just another cog, it was a brilliant piece of mechanical genius that allows two different rotational speeds to be combined into a single output. For over 1,000 years, the invention of the differential gear was credited to the industrial era, a key component in the early automobiles of the late 19th century. Yet here it was, perfectly formed inside a 2,000-year-old artifact. The inscriptions on the outer plates were not simple labels, they were finely scaled dials, a user interface for a computational device of staggering ambition. This was no mere astrolabe or decorative ornament. Derek de Solla Price had uncovered the truth. The Antikythera Mechanism was a highly sophisticated, hand-cranked calculating machine, an ancient analog computer designed to model the complex mathematics of the cosmos. The question was no longer what it was, but who on earth could have possibly built it. So this was a machine that could calculate the cosmos, turn its hand crank, and a universe of interlocking gears would spring to life, predicting the movements of the heavens with stunning precision. At the front, a single dial displayed the Egyptian calendar, while pointers revealed the positions of the 5 known planets, the Sun, and the Moon against the backdrop of the zodiac. It was not just showing the sky, it was computing it. One of its most brilliant functions was predicting lunar phases and solar eclipses, not just for the coming year, but for decades into the future. It could even indicate the characteristics of those eclipses, hinting at their color and direction, information steeped in ancient omens. This required a deep understanding of the moon's subtle wobble, a cycle called precession. The machine's creators encoded this complex, 18-year rhythm into its gears, a feat of astronomical insight and mechanical genius, but its calculations stretched across even grander scales. One of its main dials tracked the metonic cycle, a period of 19 years after which the phases of the moon aligned perfectly with the solar calendar. Another gear train accounted for the Calippic cycle, a refinement spanning 76 years. This was a long-term calendar, a way to harmonize time itself. Perhaps most surprisingly, a small subsidiary dial was inscribed with the names of major Panhellenic games, including the ancient Olympics. As the pointer moved, it would indicate the years until the next great athletic contest. This single device, then, was a unified model of reality. It connected the celestial with the terrestrial, linking the predictable cycles of the planets with the human-scale rhythm of festivals and competitions. It was, in every sense, a portable, hand-cranked universe, but such profound knowledge does not appear from nowhere. The mind behind this machine must have stood on the shoulders of intellectual giants, drawing from a well of scientific thought that history has largely forgotten. The machine's bronze gears were not its only voice. Etched across its plates and casing, in letters barely a millimeter high, were thousands of ancient Greek characters. These inscriptions were not decorative, they were functional, a comprehensive user manual for operating this cosmic calculator. As researchers painstakingly pieced together the fragmented text, a complete label system emerged. The words named the 5 known planets, not with the Roman names we use today, but with their ancient Greek titles. They carefully identified the constellations of the zodiac and marked out the complex cycles of Egyptian and Greek calendars. Each tiny character was a crucial piece of the interface, guiding the user to interpret the movements of the pointers and dials. The very style of this script, the specific shapes of the letters, became a vital clue for detectives. Experts in ancient Greek epigraphy, the study of inscriptions, analyzed the handwriting. They compared the letter forms to those found on other artifacts from the Hellenistic period, a time of vibrant scientific inquiry following Alexander the Great. The script was a perfect match. This paleographical analysis firmly dated the device to the 2nd century before the Common Era. The language itself, a sophisticated technical Greek, confirmed its origins. This was not a later addition or a mysterious import from another culture. It was a product of the brilliant, resourceful, and intensely curious Hellenistic Greek world. The mechanism's deepest secrets were not just in its moving parts, but in the words that explained them, a direct message from its creator to its user, written in the language of the stars and the language of the philosophers. So how do you place a time stamp on a ghost? The ship that carried the Antikythera Mechanism to its watery grave provides the first solid anchor in time. Scattered across the seabed around the wreck, archaeologists recovered a treasure trove of everyday objects that act as a time capsule. They found amphorae, those distinctive clay jars used for transporting wine and oil, whose shapes and styles are well documented across the ancient world. The specific forms of these jars point to a production date in the middle of the 1st century before the Common Era. Even more precise were the coins. Mixed in with the cargo were silver and bronze coins from the island of Pergamon. Crucially, one of these coins could be identified as belonging to the reign of Emperor Augustus, placing it firmly after the year 30 BC. With this collection of pottery and currency all pointing to the same few decades, the timeline of the ship's final voyage became clear. It most likely sank between 60 and 70 BC while carrying looted Greek treasures back to Rome. This means the mechanism was already an antique when it was loaded onto that ill-fated vessel. It was not a new invention being shipped to a wealthy Roman patron. It was a prized, decades-old piece of technology, perhaps stolen from a scholar's workshop or a temple treasury. The machine itself holds an even older secret within its bronze calculations. Researchers studying the eclipse prediction cycle inscribed on its main dial noticed something extraordinary. The pattern of eclipses it was programmed to forecast did not match the celestial events of 60 BC. Instead, the sequence perfectly aligns with eclipses that were visible in the ancient world much earlier. The data encoded into its gears corresponds to a period starting around 205 BCE. This suggests the creator was working from astronomical observations made during that time, building a machine that could replicate a cosmic cycle that began before they were even born. The most likely date of its construction, therefore, sits somewhere between 205 and 87 BCE. This pushes the mechanism's origins back more than a century before the ship sank into the heart of the Hellenistic Golden Age. It was already a masterpiece of a bygone era, a relic from a forgotten peak of scientific achievement, being transported as a trophy of conquest while its true significance remained locked inside, waiting silently on the seafloor for 2,000 years. But the most personal clue was hidden in the way it told time. The Antikythera Mechanism used a specific civic calendar to organize its celestial predictions, and the name of that calendar points to a real place and a real community. This was not the standard Athenian calendar used by many philosophers, nor was it a purely Egyptian system. Etched onto the main dial, researchers found clear references to the Corinthian calendar, the official timekeeping method used by the city of Corinth and its many colonies scattered across the Mediterranean. This detail is like finding a modern device programmed with the public holiday schedule of a specific county in England or a particular state in America. It tells you who the machine was built for and very likely where the creator himself was located. The Corinthian sphere of influence was distinct and powerful. Its most famous colony was Syracuse, the magnificent city on the island of Sicily that was home to the legendary mathematician Archimedes. Other colonies thrived in northwestern Greece in the region of Epirus. The machine's very structure, its fundamental operating system, is tied to the civic life and religious festivals of these Corinthian communities. Why would a machine of such universal, cosmic ambition be locked into the local calendar of a specific group of Greek cities? The most logical answer is also the most exciting. The creator was almost certainly working within that cultural sphere. He was either a native of Syracuse or another Corinthian colony, or he was commissioned by a wealthy patron from that region to build a device that would harmonize their local time with cosmic time. This single, pragmatic choice, the calendar etched into its face, acts as a powerful magnet, pulling our search away from the entire vastness of the Greek world and focusing it on a specific, brilliant corner of it. We are no longer looking for a ghost somewhere in ancient Greece. We are now searching for a genius in Syracuse. Our search for a creator in Syracuse inevitably leads us to one towering figure, a name synonymous with ancient genius Archimedes. He was not merely a scholar, he was a legend in his own time, a man whose intellectual feats seemed to border on the supernatural. Historical accounts describe him single-handedly defending his city with fantastic war machines, using giant claws to lift enemy ships from the water and arrays of mirrors to focus the sun's rays into a weapon. But his true passion was not for war, it was for understanding the fundamental principles of the universe, the mathematics of levers, the geometry of spheres, and the mechanics of the heavens. He lived and worked in Syracuse throughout the 3rd century before the Common Era, placing him squarely within the timeline suggested by the mechanism's internal eclipse data. Most compellingly, we have a direct historical witness who links Archimedes to a device just like the one from Antikythera. The Roman orator Cicero, writing more than a century later, described 2 bronze machines brought to Rome as war trophies after the sack of Syracuse. He wrote that one of these, constructed by Archimedes, replicated the motions of the sun, the moon, and the 5 known planets. When you turned a handle, he said, the heavenly bodies moved in their orbits with their correct speeds and relationships. This is not a vague reference to an ornament, it is a clear description of a complex, geared planetarium, a portable cosmos made of bronze. The resemblance to the Antikythera Mechanism is stunning. Yet a puzzle remains. Archimedes was killed by a Roman soldier in 212 BC, decades before the Antikythera ship sank. How could a device from his workshop be on a ship more than a century later? The answer may lie not in the hands of the master, but in his legacy. The machine recovered from the sea could be a later masterpiece, built by a brilliant student or a follower working directly from Archimedes' original, revolutionary designs. It might be a copy of his famous planetarium, preserving his cosmic clockwork for a new generation. This would explain its sophistication, its connection to the Corinthian calendar of Syracuse, and its existence long after the great inventor's death. Archimedes stands as the most compelling candidate, a mind so vast that the creation of the world's first computer fits perfectly within his legendary capabilities. Yet another name echoes from this period, a man whose mind was so deeply tuned to the cosmos that he could measure its subtle wobbles. Hipparchus of Rhodes, working in the 2nd century before the Common Era, was not a legendary engineer like Archimedes, but an observational astronomer of unparalleled genius. While others watched the stars, Hipparchus was calculating them, creating the first mathematical models to predict their movements with precision. His most profound discovery was the precession of the equinoxes, the slow, gradual drift of the entire star field over a cycle of 26,000 years. He detected this monumental shift by comparing his own observations with records from his predecessors, noticing that the position of the Sun at the spring equinox had moved slightly against the backdrop of the stars. This was a discovery of staggering insight, revealing a cosmic rhythm so slow it was almost imperceptible across a human lifetime, and it is this very rhythm that is mechanically encoded within the Antikythera device. The machine's gearing accounts for the Moon's own subtle wobble, a related cycle of precession that Hipparchus also studied in detail. The mathematical principles needed to translate these complex celestial motions into the turning of bronze gears, the ratios and relationships between the cycles, are the same trigonometric models that Hipparchus pioneered. The mechanism does not just show the sky, it calculates it using a physical embodiment of his theoretical work. This makes Hipparchus a prime suspect in our mystery. The device could be seen as a grand synthesis of his life's research, a working model built to demonstrate his revolutionary theories in a tangible, undeniable form. It is the difference between writing down an equation and building a machine that solves it automatically. The Antikythera Mechanism is that machine, a physical manifestation of a single mind's grasp of the universe. But if Hipparchus was the brilliant theorist who was the artisan capable of forging his mathematics into bronze, a third candidate emerges from the very route of the ship itself. The vessel that carried the Antikythera Mechanism was sailing from the intellectual hub of Rhodes to the rising power of Rome, and on that island lived Posidonius, one of the most renowned thinkers of his age. He was not just a philosopher of the Stoic school, but a true polymath, a man whose boundless curiosity drove him to study earthquakes, volcanoes, and the complex ebb and flow of the ocean tides. He ran a famous school in Rhodes that attracted elite Roman patrons, including Cicero himself, who studied there. Posidonius believed in a rational, interconnected universe, a cosmos bound by divine, logical laws. What better way to demonstrate this beautiful order than with a machine that could physically replicate its celestial harmony? His specific, recorded interest in tidal patterns is a crucial clue. The ocean's tides are governed by the gravitational pull of the Moon and Sun, a complex dance of cycles and phases. To build a mechanism that could predict the motions of these heavenly bodies was, in essence, to build a machine that could theoretically model the forces behind the tides. This was not just abstract stargazing, it was an attempt to link the cosmic with the terrestrial, to show how the Moon's journey directly influenced the waters of the Earth. The geographical fit is perfect. If the device was crafted in a workshop in Rhodes, its placement on a ship bound for Rome makes immediate sense, a precious export of knowledge from the Greek world to its new Roman masters. Posidonius represents a different kind of genius from Archimedes the engineer or Hipparchus the astronomer. He was the great synthesizer, the man who sought to weave all of nature's threads into a single, comprehensible tapestry. The Antikythera Mechanism is the ultimate tool for a Stoic philosopher, a physical model of a rational and predictable cosmos. Could this machine have been the centerpiece of his teachings, a bronze oracle used to show his students the unbreakable logic of the universe? Rhodes was the Silicon Valley of the ancient world. This vibrant island state was more than just a trading power. It was a crucible of scientific innovation, a place where astronomers, mathematicians, and master artisans worked side by side. The evidence pointing to Rhodes as the mechanism's birthplace is not a single clue, but a web of interconnected facts that together form a compelling case. The ship's own voyage suggests it. The vessel was almost certainly traveling the well-established trade route from Rhodes to Rome, carrying a cargo that reflected the island's wealth and cultural exports. Amphorae from Rhodes were found in the wreck, and the style of other recovered artifacts, including fine glassware and ceramics, consistently points back to this central Aegean hub. The ship itself may have been Rhodian, a floating piece of the island carrying its greatest intellectual treasure, but the most personal connection is etched in the machine's own voice. The thousands of tiny inscriptions on the bronze plates include a comprehensive parapegma, an astronomical calendar that predicted the rising and setting of specific stars throughout the year. This was a practical guide for farmers and sailors, but for modern researchers, it became a geographical fingerprint. The star calendar on the Antikythera Mechanism does not describe a generic Mediterranean sky. The specific timing of these celestial events, the dates given for when a certain star would first appear at dawn, is calibrated for a latitude of 35 degrees north. This line runs directly through the island of Rhodes. A machine built in Alexandria or Athens would have a different celestial schedule, but this one perfectly matches the sky as seen from a Rhodian workshop. This island was home to Hipparchus, the astronomical genius whose theories of lunar motion are physically built into the machine's gears. It was also the base of Posidonius, the philosopher who sought a unified understanding of nature. But beyond these famous names, Rhodes fostered a unique culture of engineering. Its famous school of mechanics was unparalleled, known for creating automated theater sets, ingenious water clocks, and complex devices that seemed to breathe with a life of their own. This is the essential environment the mechanism required, a place where abstract astronomical mathematics could be translated into tangible, precision-cut bronze gear wheels. It needed more than a lone genius, it needed an entire ecosystem of skill. A brilliant theorist could calculate the ratios, but it took a master craftsman to file a gear with teeth so fine and perfect that it would mesh flawlessly for centuries. On Rhodes, the line between scientist and engineer was blurred, creating the perfect conditions for a synthesis of cosmic knowledge and mechanical art. The Antikythera Mechanism feels less like an isolated miracle and more like a natural, if sublime, product of its environment. This was a machine born from a society that believed the universe could be understood and then built a machine to prove it. Yet even a genius needs hands. The sheer physical reality of the Antikythera Mechanism argues against the myth of a solitary inventor toiling in isolation. This was not a theoretical diagram scratched on papyrus. It was a masterwork of precision engineering, a tangible object born from fire, metal, and immense skill. To build it required a symphony of talents, a workshop where different kinds of knowledge converged. First, you needed the astronomer, the mind who understood the complex cycles of the cosmos, the metonic and callippic periods, the subtle wobble of the moon. This theorist provided the blueprint, the mathematical ratios that needed to be translated into the turns of gears. A single gear tooth cut too wide or a shaft aligned a fraction of a degree off, and the entire cosmic calculation would be thrown into chaos for centuries. This is where the master engineer took over, the person who could transform abstract numbers into a three-dimensional mechanical design. They had to solve puzzles of space and motion, deciding how to stack dozens of interlocking gears within a compact wooden case, ensuring they would move smoothly without jamming. They designed the brilliant differential gear, a piece of mechanical logic that feels almost modern. Then came the metalworkers, the true artisans whose hands gave form to the theory. Using simple tools like bow drills and files, they had to cast 30 or more bronze gear wheels, each with its precise number of teeth, some as fine as 1 millimeter across. They cut these teeth by hand with a level of consistency that would challenge a modern machinist. Every component, from the tiny pins that served as axles to the beautifully engraved dials on the face, required a separate, specialized craft. This was not a one-person job. It was a collaborative project, the ancient equivalent of a high-tech startup, demanding a team of experts working in concert. So who were these people? They were likely part of a knowledge community, a thriving intellectual ecosystem in a place like Rhodes or Alexandria. These were not just cities, they were idea factories. Think of a university campus combined with a world-class engineering workshop and a bustling international port. In Rhodes, the famous school of mechanics was a hub for exactly this kind of work, known for building astonishing automata and complex public displays. In such an environment, an astronomer like Hipparchus could walk down the street and discuss a lunar anomaly with a master gear cutter. A philosopher like Posidonius could commission a device to demonstrate his unified theory of nature, relying on the collective skill of a dozen artisans to make it real. The Antikythera Mechanism is simply too complete, too refined to be a first-of-its-kind prototype. It feels like a product of a tradition, an object that could only emerge from a culture where this collaborative synthesis of science and craft was not just possible but celebrated. The real mystery, then, may not be the name of one lost genius, but the forgotten name of the workshop itself, a place where the ancient world built its most astonishing secret. The true genius of this machine is etched into its teeth. Deep within the corroded fragments, researchers identified a gear wheel with 223 precisely cut teeth. This was no arbitrary number. It was the key to one of the cosmos's most dramatic cycles, the Saros. This 18-year, 11-day period is the heartbeat of eclipses, the rhythm at which the Sun, Earth, and Moon return to the same alignment. By turning this specific gear, the mechanism's pointer would complete a single revolution around a dial, marking the completion of one full Saros cycle and predicting the next series of lunar and solar eclipses with stunning accuracy. It was a celestial alarm clock built 2 millennia ago, but to model the Moon's motion, the creator had to solve a far more difficult puzzle. The Moon does not orbit the Earth at a constant speed. It travels faster at some points in its elliptical path and slower at others. From our perspective, this means the Moon appears to speed up and slow down in the sky. Capturing this subtle variability in a machine made of turning gears seemed impossible, a problem that would stump engineers for centuries. The solution they engineered was nothing short of revolutionary. They built a differential gear. This was not a single gear, but an elegant assembly of multiple gears mounted on a complex frame. Its purpose was pure mechanical logic, to take two different input speeds, average them, and produce one output speed that perfectly mimicked the Moon's variable motion. One input came from a gear representing the Moon's average speed, the other from a gear that gently modified that speed based on its position in orbit. The differential gear combined these two messages into a single, truthful output that drove the Moon's pointer across the dial, making it slow down and speed up just as the real Moon does in the heavens. This was a conceptual leap of staggering brilliance. The differential gear would not be reinvented until the 19th century, when it became the heart of the modern automobile, allowing its wheels to turn at different speeds around a corner. To find this same principle inside a 2,000-year-old artifact is to witness a flash of lightning from a clear sky. It reveals a mind that did not just observe nature, but understood its underlying mathematics so deeply that they could build a machine to physically embody its most subtle laws. This was not just craftsmanship, it was a form of mechanical philosophy, a universe of bronze and ambition ticking quietly inside a wooden box. Every single gear began as a vision in beeswax. To build this cosmic calculator, its creators first had to master the art of miniaturization on a scale the ancient world had never seen. They used the lost wax method, a technique known to bronze workers for centuries, but here pushed to its absolute limits. An artisan would sculpt a perfect model of a gear, complete with all its tiny teeth, out of a soft sheet of beeswax. This delicate wax model was then encased in a thick clay mold and placed in a furnace. The heat would melt the wax, letting it drain out through a small channel, leaving behind a perfect negative cavity in the hardened clay. Into this empty space, they poured a special bronze alloy, a carefully balanced mixture of copper and tin that was both strong enough to hold its shape and soft enough to be worked later. When the metal cooled and the clay was broken away, a rough bronze gear emerged, a ghost of the original wax sculpture, but this was only the beginning. The real magic happened in the hands of the filer. Using nothing more than a bronze file and incredible patience, a master craftsperson would sit for days, perhaps weeks, refining that single gear. They would shave away microscopic amounts of metal, shaping each tooth to its final, perfect form. The tolerances they achieved are what still stuns engineers today. The gears had to mesh with almost no play, their teeth engaging with a smooth, consistent motion. A single tooth filed a fraction of a millimeter too wide, and the entire sequence of celestial calculations would be thrown into error. Think of the steady hand and sharp eye required to file a gear with 223 teeth, each one nearly identical to the last, all by hand. Their tool kit was brutally simple, a collection of bow drills, gravers, hammers, and an array of files. With these basic instruments, they had to drill perfectly centered pivot holes for axles thinner than a pencil lead. They had to assemble this intricate clockwork inside a wooden case, ensuring that 30 separate gears, all spinning on their own pins, would align perfectly across multiple layers without jamming. This was not a machine built to be displayed. It was built to be used, to be cranked day after day, year after year. The smooth, long-term function was the ultimate test of their skill. Each component was a testament to a forgotten standard of craftsmanship, where the unerring motion of the heavens was mirrored by the flawless turning of hand-filed bronze. So why would someone pour such immense effort into a single, complex machine? The first and most practical answer lies in the sky itself, in the needs of the people who lived by its rhythms. For a sailor navigating the open sea, knowing the phase of the moon and the position of the constellations was a matter of survival. For a farmer, the correct date for sowing seeds or harvesting crops was dictated by the stars. The mechanism's star calendar, its parapegma, gave exactly this information, predicting the annual rising and setting of key stars. It was a sophisticated almanac, a farmer's practical guide, and a sailor's celestial chart, all rolled into one portable device. Yet this theory only scratches the surface. A simple carved stone calendar would have sufficed for those basic needs. The sheer over-engineering of 30 precision gears suggests a purpose far beyond the agricultural. Perhaps it was a tool for power, not subsistence. In the ancient world, knowledge of the heavens was the ultimate source of authority. The ability to predict an eclipse, an event that filled people with terror and awe, was a form of magic. A king or a priest who possessed this machine could claim a direct line to the gods. He could announce, "Do not fear the disappearing sun, for my bronze oracle foretold it." This was not just astronomy, it was political theater, a demonstration of control over the very cosmos used to solidify power and command obedience. Then there is the compelling theory of astrology. The Hellenistic world was deeply fascinated with the idea that the planets influenced human destiny. The machine could calculate the positions of the 5 known planets against the zodiac, the essential first step for casting a detailed horoscope for a wealthy patron. It would have been the most advanced astrological computer in existence, a priceless tool for a seer serving the elite of Rome or Alexandria. Yet for some of the minds we have discussed, like Posidonius, the purpose may have been purely philosophical. The Stoics believed the universe was a single, rational, living entity. What better way to demonstrate this beautiful, logical order than with a machine that mirrored its perfect motions? The device was a physical model of a divine cosmos, a teaching aid to show students the unbreakable laws governing nature. It made abstract philosophy tangible. And finally, we cannot ignore the simplest human motive, prestige. In an age of competing kingdoms and wealthy elites, owning such an unparalleled marvel of technology was the ultimate status symbol. It was a rich man's philosophical toy, a conversation piece of staggering sophistication, a testament to its owner's wealth, intellect, and connection to the cutting edge of science. It was the ancient equivalent of owning a private space shuttle or a supercomputer, a statement of power and curiosity. The truth is, the Antikythera Mechanism was likely all these things at once. Its genius was its multifaceted nature. It served the farmer, the king, the astrologer, and the philosopher, all from the same set of turning gears. It was a tool for life, for power, for prophecy, and for pure wonder. Such profound knowledge did not simply fade away, it was extinguished. The single greatest tragedy of the Antikythera Mechanism is its utter isolation in the historical record. It stands alone, a flash of impossible brilliance with no past and no future. No other device of its complexity has ever been found from the ancient world, and no classical text describes its construction in detail. It is a technological island in a sea of silence. This was not a prototype that sparked an industry, it was a dead end. The mechanical genius it represents seems to have died with the vibrant, curious culture that created it. The Hellenistic world, with its great libraries and schools of engineering, was a perfect environment for such innovation. But that world was already crumbling, about to be absorbed by the monolithic power of Rome. The Romans were brilliant administrators, soldiers, and builders of aqueducts and roads, but their focus was on practical empire, not abstract cosmic calculation. They admired Greek science, they collected its marvels as trophies, but they did not seem to nurture the unique, collaborative spirit of inquiry that could produce a second mechanism. The knowledge was too fragile, held in too few hands, and when those workshops in Rhodes or Syracuse were scattered by war or economic change, the art was simply lost. The gearwork of the cosmos was silenced for over a millennium. Now consider a different path. What if this technology had not been a fleeting spark, but a flame that was passed on? Imagine the Roman Empire with its vast resources and organizational skills, inheriting not just the device itself, but the living knowledge of how to build and improve it. The same culture that built networks of roads across continents could have established schools of precision mechanics. The same logistical mind that supplied legions at the edges of the known world could have standardized gear production. We might have seen mechanical calculators in government treasuries or geared navigational aids on every Roman trading ship sailing to India. The Dark Ages might not have been so dark, illuminated instead by the steady ticking of clockwork, preserving and advancing the mathematical knowledge of the ancients. This lost potential stretches across centuries. If the tradition of complex gearwork had survived, the scientific revolution of the 17th century could have begun in the 13th. The intricate astronomical clocks of medieval Europe were marvels, but they were rediscoveries, born from a long struggle back to a level of sophistication the Greeks had already mastered. The Antikythera Mechanism proves that the fundamental principles of the analog computer were understood 2,000 years ago. The sheer momentum of that head start, if it had been maintained, is almost impossible to fathom. We are left with a haunting thought. The machine is not just a measure of how advanced the ancient world was, but a measure of how much was lost. It is a ghost from a future that never was, a road not taken in the history of technology, resting silently at the bottom of the sea. The silent bronze finally gave up its secrets to a new kind of light. In the early 2000s, an international team of scientists formed the Antikythera Mechanism Research Project, armed with technologies its creator could never have dreamed of. They subjected the fragile fragments to high-resolution surface imaging and three-dimensional X-ray tomography. Think of it as a medical CT scanner, but one so precise it could map the internal structure of the corroded lumps in microscopic detail. This was not merely looking at the object, it was digitally unwrapping it layer by infinitesimal layer. The ghost in the machine began to materialize. The tomographic scans acted like a time machine in reverse, peeling back the centuries of corrosion and calcification to reveal the pristine surfaces hidden within. Faint inscriptions, completely invisible to the naked eye, suddenly emerged from the digital shadows. The team could read letters and words that had been lost for 2 millennia, effectively doubling the amount of text known from the mechanism. They discovered new paragraphs of its user manual, describing in exquisite detail the motions of the planets and the colors of upcoming eclipses, but the revelations went beyond the words. The three-dimensional models revealed the true complexity of the gear trains with unprecedented clarity. They could see how each gear was mounted on its bronze axle, how the pinions engaged, and how the entire system was designed to fit within the cramped confines of the wooden case. This digital resurrection allowed them to understand functions that were previously just theoretical guesses. They confirmed the existence of a complex planetary system at the front of the device, a series of nested tubes that carried the pointers for Venus and Saturn, each following its own carefully calculated path through the zodiac. The scans revealed tiny pins and slots in certain gears, physical embodiments of the mathematical corrections needed to model the planet's variable speeds, their occasional pauses and loops in the sky. For the first time, researchers could run a perfect, frictionless, digital simulation of the entire mechanism, watching as its pointers moved in perfect harmony with the ancient cosmos it was built to represent. This was no longer just an artifact, it was a fully understood machine. The 21st century technology did not just reveal what the mechanism was, it finally clarified the breathtaking scope of what it could do, solidifying its status as the most sophisticated object from the ancient world. These digital blueprints became a call to action for modern engineers. Armed with the precise scans, teams around the world set out to do something no one had done in 2 millennia: build a working Antikythera mechanism from scratch. They did not use ancient tools, but computer-controlled milling machines and 3D printers, creating gear wheels with a level of precision that would have astounded the original artisans. Yet they strictly followed the ancient design, replicating every tooth count, every shaft position, and every inscribed character. When they assembled these modern replicas and turned the hand crank, something magical happened. The pointers for the sun and moon began their slow dance across the dials. The eclipse predictor ticked forward. The planetary indicators traced their paths through the constellations of the zodiac. The machine worked. It was not a clumsy approximation. It was a smooth, functional, and breathtakingly accurate planetarium. These physical models were the final, definitive proof. They silenced the last remaining skeptics who had argued the device was purely decorative or too complex to be practical. By building it themselves, modern engineers confirmed that the ancient design was not just a theoretical diagram. It was a flawless set of instructions for a real machine. Every gear, every ratio, every inscribed scale was part of a coherent and brilliantly engineered whole. You can now watch videos of these replicas in motion, a symphony of bronze gears turning in perfect harmony, a ghost given new life. This achievement closes one of the greatest chapters in archaeological history. We are no longer guessing at its function, we know it. The mystery of what it did has been solved. But in solving that puzzle, these faithful reconstructions have unlocked an even deeper and more profound question. If we can build it today with our advanced technology, what does that say about the civilization that built it 2,000 years ago with nothing but fire, files, and a fathomless understanding of the cosmos? Its bronze perfection was not, in fact, perfect. Those 30 precision gears, for all their brilliance, contain tiny, telling flaws. The gear ratio for Venus, for instance, is a fraction of a percent off from the true astronomical value. This was not a catastrophic error, but over decades of operation, the planet's pointer would slowly drift from its actual position in the sky. Even the inscriptions, so carefully engraved, show moments of human hesitation. On one fragment, a letter was mistakenly carved and then partially corrected. On another, the spacing between words becomes cramped as the engraver realized he was running out of room. These are not the marks of an infallible super-civilization, but of skilled artisans working at the very edge of their understanding and ability. They were translating radical new theories into physical form, and sometimes the theory was still being refined or the craftsman's hand slipped. This machine was a monumental achievement, but it was also a prototype, a first draft of the cosmos in bronze. Think of the process that must have led to it. A first attempt built from the astronomer's calculations would have been tested against the night sky. The builder would have watched night after night as the machine's prediction for the moon's position began to diverge from reality. He would have taken it apart, scrutinized the gear trains, and recalculated the ratios. Perhaps he realized the moon's orbit was not a perfect circle, leading to the ingenious addition of the differential gear to account for its variable speed. Each of these small errors was a puzzle to be solved, a challenge that pushed the technology forward. The final device we pulled from the sea represents not a single flash of inspiration, but countless hours of trial and error, of observation and correction. This humanizes its creators in a way its sheer brilliance sometimes obscures. They were not gods but problem solvers. They argued, they made mistakes, and they learned from them. The Antikythera Mechanism is not a finished, flawless product. It is a snapshot of a process, a glimpse into a workshop where the ancient world was literally building its understanding of the universe, one imperfect, beautiful gear at a time. The seafloor at Antikythera is still whispering its secrets. While we have deciphered the machine's function, the ultimate mystery of its creator remains locked within the wreckage, and that is why the search has intensified. A new generation of archaeologists is now returning to the original shipwreck, equipped with technology that would seem like sorcery to the sponge divers of 1900. They are no longer limited by human endurance, using exosuit diving systems that are essentially wearable submarines, allowing them to work for hours at depths that were once a death sentence. They sweep the seabed with sub-bottom profilers and three-dimensional mapping systems, creating a photogrammetric model of the entire site, centimeter by centimeter. They are not just looking for treasure, they are conducting a forensic investigation of the seafloor, sifting through the sediment for the one fragment that could change everything. The great hope, the tantalizing dream, is to find more pieces of the mechanism itself. The device we have was housed in a wooden case roughly the size of a shoebox, and it shattered upon impact. Current reconstructions account for about 82 surviving fragments, but what about the rest? A single new fragment, no bigger than a coin, could contain the corner of a plate etched with a name. It might bear the signature of a workshop, a dedication to a patron, or a reference to a specific philosopher or astronomer. This is the smoking gun the entire scientific community is waiting for, an inscription that directly names Archimedes or Hipparchus or Posidonius, finally attaching a legendary name to this legendary machine. But the possibilities are even more thrilling. The historical accounts describe multiple devices. Cicero wrote of 2 such orreries from Syracuse. Could there be a second mechanism lying a few meters away in the silt? Perhaps a simpler model or a more advanced version, or one built by a different school of thought altogether. Finding a second device would prove this was not a miraculous one-off but a technological tradition. It would give us a point of comparison, a way to see the evolution of the design. The ongoing work at the Antikythera wreck is therefore one of the most consequential archaeological missions in the world. Every scoop of sediment holds the potential to rewrite a chapter in the history of science. The answers are not in a library or a museum, but buried under 2,000 years of sand and sea, waiting for the right hand to reach down and bring them into the light. Of course, theories this revolutionary rarely exist in a vacuum. When an object seems to defy history, it naturally invites more speculative origins. Some researchers have pointed to the east toward the ancient astronomers of Babylon. The Babylonians were legendary mathematicians, masters of the sky who meticulously recorded planetary movements and eclipse cycles for centuries. Their detailed observations, preserved on clay tablets, formed the foundational data that Greek astronomers like Hipparchus would have studied. It is entirely plausible that the raw astronomical numbers, the complex periods and ratios that drive the mechanism, were originally Babylonian discoveries. The machine, in this view, is a Greek mechanical engine powered by Babylonian fuel. Yet this theory only stretches so far. While the numbers may have come from the East, the concept of building a physical, geared model to compute those numbers is uniquely, undeniably Greek. No Babylonian device, no hint of such advanced mechanics, has ever been found in Mesopotamia. The leap from observing the sky to building a miniature version of it is a profound one, born from a specific Hellenistic obsession with understanding nature through engineering and reason. More speculative ideas have surfaced over the years, suggesting even more exotic origins. Could it be a relic from the legendary lost city of Atlantis, or proof of contact with an advanced, non-human intelligence? These are captivating stories, but they crumble under the weight of the evidence. Every single physical aspect of the mechanism, from the style of its Greek inscriptions to the specific alloys in its bronze gears, anchors it firmly in the 2nd century before the Common Era. The shipwreck that carried it is a time capsule of the Hellenistic world, filled with coins, pottery, and art that all point to the same cultural context. This is how a true scholarly consensus is built, not by dismissing wild ideas outright, but by steadily amassing an overwhelming body of evidence that points to a single, coherent story. The Babylonian connection enriches our understanding, showing the international flow of knowledge in the ancient world. But the wilder theories serve as a mirror, reflecting our own modern amazement back at us. The real marvel is not that the machine was built by gods or aliens, but that it was built by human hands in a specific time and place, by people whose ingenuity was so profound that it still feels to us almost supernatural. But this is more than a simple historical whodunit. The relentless search for a name, for a single face in the crowd of antiquity, is driven by something deeper than curiosity. It is an attempt to solve a fundamental human mystery, the moment when an idea first leaps from the mind into the world. Knowing who built this machine would do more than just fill a blank in a textbook. It would connect a human consciousness to this pivotal leap in technology. We would stop speaking of a faceless, ancient civilization and start speaking of a person, an individual who lived, breathed, and dreamed in gears and star charts. Imagine being able to trace the lineage of their thought, to see which philosophers they studied, which astronomers they debated with, and which failed prototypes littered their workshop floor. This is the profound difference between finding a tool and finding its inventor. The tool is a marvel, but the inventor is a story. Giving this genius a name would give us a window into the intellectual environment that could nurture such a mind. Was it a solitary workshop in Syracuse filled with the ghost of Archimedes, or a bustling academy on Rhodes where astronomers and metalworkers shared their lunches and their latest breakthroughs? The creator's identity is the key that unlocks the door to that entire lost world of innovation. It shows us the conditions, the collaborations, and the sparks of genius that are required to turn abstract knowledge into tangible reality. This is why the mystery matters so deeply. It is not about crediting one person, but about understanding the very nature of human progress. It asks a question that resonates through all of history. What does it take for a society to produce a mind that can see the universe not as a mystery, but as a machine waiting to be built? Solving this ancient puzzle would finally give a human face to that monumental leap, transforming a cold, bronze artifact into a testament of one person's incredible vision. So where does this trail of clues leave us? We stand at a crossroads of history, holding a handful of brilliant fragments that point in several directions at once. The evidence is a constellation of facts, each one illuminating a different possible creator. The Corinthian calendar etched into the dial is our strongest geographical marker, pulling our gaze directly toward Syracuse and the legacy of its most famous son, Archimedes. The historical accounts of his bronze planetariums are simply too compelling to ignore, suggesting he provided the original, revolutionary blueprint. Yet the ship itself, laden with Rhodian pottery and sailing from that island's shores, makes an equally powerful case. The astronomical fingerprints on the machine, the precise modeling of the moon's subtle wobble, match the known work of Hipparchus of Rhodes with uncanny accuracy. Here was a mind that calculated the cosmos, and the mechanism is a physical manifestation of his math. And then there is Posidonius, the philosopher on Rhodes who sought to unify all of nature's laws, for whom this device would have been the ultimate teaching tool, a stoic's dream made of bronze. The truth is, the evidence does not cleanly point to one man over the others. It paints a picture of a vibrant, interconnected intellectual world. Perhaps Archimedes conceived the principle, Hipparchus provided the refined astronomical data, and a master workshop in Rhodes, inspired by Posidonius's philosophy, executed the breathtakingly complex construction. We are left with a profound choice. Do we credit the legendary engineer from Syracuse, the astronomical genius from Rhodes, or the great synthesizing philosopher? Or do we accept that this machine might be the product of an entire era, a collaborative masterpiece whose individual creator's name is lost to the sea, leaving only the echo of their collective genius ticking inside a wooden box? The mystery endures not as a failure of investigation, but as a testament to the sheer density of brilliance in that forgotten age. That corroded lump of bronze and wood pulled from the sea has transformed into a window, revealing a forgotten age of genius. We began with a storm and a shipwreck, and we have arrived at a machine that calculates the cosmos, a device so advanced it feels like an anomaly in time. The journey of the Antikythera Mechanism rewrites our most fundamental assumptions about the ancient world, proving that the spark of high technology was lit not in the Renaissance, but 2,000 years ago in the workshops of Greece. This was not magic, it was mechanics, a symphony of hand-filed gears singing the mathematical laws of the universe. Its true legacy lies not in a single solved mystery, but in the profound shift it forces upon us. We can no longer view the past as a linear march from simple to complex. This machine stands as a permanent monument to a road not taken, a peak of human ingenuity that was reached and then lost. The identity of its creator may remain hidden in the sands of time, a ghost we chase through the corridors of history, but perhaps that is the ultimate lesson. The greatest surprise buried within this ancient computer is the reminder that human potential has always been vast, often flickering in places and times we have yet to fully comprehend. History is not a closed book, but a living story still being unearthed, and the next great discovery that shatters our expectations could be waiting just beneath the surface. So what do you think? After this journey through the clues, who do you believe was the mastermind behind the world's first computer? Was it Archimedes, Hipparchus, Posidonius, or a name lost forever? Share your theory in the comments below.